Hello, 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 everybody. How y'all doing today? So glad to meet with you all today for another this week, another session of This Week in Supervision, where we've got some exciting things to talk about today. Okay, today we're going to be talking about, and I hope it's live. Let me just go and record it just in case. Well, it's been doing good. I'll take the risk. I don't know if I should do that, but anyway. So what we're going to be talking about today is dissociative identity disorder. We like to discuss disorders during our supervision so that we can get a deeper understanding of how to treat them. And sometimes these are disorders that we might not often see in psychotherapy, like dissociative identity disorder. We talked about last week about autism, and I actually even saw some parallels with some things when with autism and dissociative identity disorder. That's really amazing from the standpoint of things occurring when we're overly stimulated. Okay. Um, anyway, so we talk about these types of things, and we're going to talk about how these dissociations, because a lot of times, until more recently, I haven't heard much about how functional dissociations are for the time. They're not functional long term, but in a sense, depending on how you want to look at it, they can be considered functional for the time being, unless you're just telling me that I should just stay present and that you've got a clever way that I'm supposed to accept this abuse in real time and feel it, experience it, and all of that, and then be okay. So I think that it serves its purpose, but longer term, we know that it has its problems, and we talk about some of these things when we're meeting with individuals in supervision. So we've got a lot to cover today, because what I'm going to be doing is showing you a short clip of and you may want to, we may in my supervision go over this more in depth, because it was just so much that I learned from this video. It's been a long time since I watched it. I don't even know if I've seen the whole thing. um and it's really important a lot of times for us to learn the more extreme sides, and it helps us to be able to play some of the scenarios that we may come across as clinicians, as supervisors, that aren't as extreme. Okay, and so that's what we're going to be talking about. But in this video, we have someone who has DID. Now a lot of times individuals with dissociative identity disorder, they don't just switch so randomly, but in this case, you can see the switches right in front of you, and we're going to talk about why. And I don't want to get into too much of the details, um, but I do want to. We got some exciting things to talk about with this. All right, and just before we do that, of course, my screen is never ready. It's just never ready. Like, this is supposed to be a smooth transition, and I can't ever find what I'm trying to find. But I'm going to start off to let you know that we have a free, for those who are members of Social Workers Alabama, we have a training that is free to you, that will be coming up this month. And I'm going to try to share my screen and let you know about it. And we'll do this in about 30 seconds. If I could really do that. Yeah, we'll do it 30 seconds. Life After the Rainbow, helping clients through pet and grief loss. Come and check us out. If you're not a part of Social Workers Alabama, you can still get the CEU. And we've got a good price on it there. And we're so excited to have Christina Lilly, who is also part of our group, and she is going to be presenting to us on this topic. All right. And then next, we need you to know about our June 14th uh, DSM training. It's on Friday, the 14th, and from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And this is a training that, for those of you all who are not aware, it is a DSM training is required for individuals who have a clinical license. So ours is one of the ones that you can, that would be approved, and we'd love to see you there. Moving right along, we do have a supervisor training coming up And there's a lot of things that you can do with that once you get those credentials independently, especially for people who don't want to do psychotherapy full time. This is a good way to draw up some income. All right, so I don't want to be too long winded. And then we have the DSM. We got a really good price on this, and y'all been supporting us on this. Thank you. For the self-paced DSM training. And this is a really good training where you can get those credits as well, but do it on your own time. Pick up, put it down on your own time. All right, so let's get into this topic because this is going to be a good one. This is going to be a good one, and I want to see if I can pull up my notes here. And there's some questions that a lot of times you want to be able to ask when you start off your supervision. And so I like to start off my supervision by asking the group questions just to kind of get an idea of where they are as far as their understanding and competency on the topic, on the subject. All right. And so I'm going to share with you even some of my notes here that I'm going to pull from uh, just as an example here. Okay, so we're talking about dissociative identity disorder, and what does that mean to you when we say dissociative identity disorder? This is what you might want to ask your supervisees questions like this to get them to really thinking. Because even for me, for a long time, I had not thought like, oh, when we're talking about dissociative identity disorder, man, this is an individual who is dissociating at another level. Like they're living in dissociation sometimes, like, or they're experiencing it on a day-to-day basis many times, or sometimes day-to-day throughout the entire day, depending on how serious their situation is. So in order for us to really get deep into understanding what's going on, because some of us may be turned off and think, oh, I can never treat somebody with dissociative identity disorder. Well, maybe that's not the case. Okay, the more that I know I can and I have. It's not something that I claim to be an expert at, and I probably would pass most of them to somebody else who has better expertise on that. But yeah, so the thing is what is generally at the root of dissociations? This is something that's very important. What's at the root of dissociation? In other words, what generally causes dissociations? This is something you want to challenge your group with. What I notice is that the group, individuals in the group, myself, us as humans, a lot of times like to be challenged. It challenges us, makes us think, do I know the answer to that? So what is generally at the root of dissociations? And so we talked about how trauma is at the root of dissociations, right? We talked about how trauma is at the root of dissociations, and we talked about how when you look at the word you look at dissociative identity disorder, when you break that down, just think about it when you break it down. It hold on, let me when you uh-oh. Okay, I'm sorry. So when you break that down, and I hope we're still going here. All right, yeah, we're still going. I'm sorry. So when you break down dissociative identity disorder, um, when you look at the word, when you think about dissociations, this in essence we're looking at that somebody that's experiencing this may be like um, they may have taken on a new identity because of pain. So dissociative. If we think about dissociative, why do people generally dissociate? Many times we dissociate because we're being overwhelmed with something. Okay. Again, the environment that I am is overstimulating me, and it's overstimulating my senses to the point that I make a switch. Okay, it's too much. And when we're talking about dissociations in general, we're talking about that people who experience dissociations generally experience them because they have experienced trauma. Okay, so let me hurry up. So the reason for it is I've had trauma, and the trauma is so serious that I have it impacted me in a way that I've taken on new identities. And so it's important to know what the pain is that they're experiencing. Someone who typically has dissociative identity disorder, what has been their background experience? Okay, in most cases. And so I brought together some studies to present to them. I didn't go deep into the studies, but it said one of them said that the vast majority of people who develop dissociative disorders have experienced repetitive, that's a key word, repetitive overwhelming trauma in childhood. This trauma has been repetitive. It's not something they is a one and done. It's generally people who have dissociative identity disorder. They have experienced repeated trauma, so they many times are having to resource uh, these identities that they have established as a way to cope. All right, and so uh, it also said among the individuals with dissociative identity disorder in the United States, Canada, blah 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 blah, about 90% have been victims of childhood abuse, and neglect. What's another important factor to understand? When you think about risk factors, and this is what we're testing them on, if you're thinking right now about risk factors for someone who has dissociative identity disorder, some things that may make them unsafe that we might need to keep in mind, something that you need to know, okay? Individuals who have been diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, in general, more than 70% of them that are outpatients have attempted suicide. 70%. That's high. So only 3 out of 10 have not, who have come through outpatient, just in general, from one of the studies I was looking at. Only 3 out of 10. So you could imagine that if 70%, think about the trauma that someone has experienced, to where they because you have this situation, which is generally someone abused you, okay, then it makes me want to take my life. Think about this. Do I have to have DID to have experienced trauma, or to sometimes dissociate and maybe have feelings or thoughts of taking my life? See, that's on the other side of the spectrum. That, and these are the things that we have to process and think about. But most of these individuals have, the trauma has been so intense that they've wanted to take their lives. 70%. So the 3 out of 10, I would imagine, are still having maybe some ideations or things of that nature. Okay, so that's something to consider. And these are things that are mandatory for us to know if we want to be effective with treatment, because we're talking about safety here, right? So let's 37, 47. Okay, let's go on and bring this situation here. I want to bring up a situation, a case. And when we're talking about what leads to dissociations, you might be surprised too, that because sometimes when you have had significant trauma, it doesn't take much to push you over. Y'all gonna think I'm tripping, but it made me really think a lot about my on the less extreme side, but pretty extreme, um those who I have provided psychotherapy for, who are domestic, are what do you call, perpetrators of domestic violence. Many of the ones who are more sociopathic, I've seen, they have the tendency to black out. Okay, I don't have time to go into this, but you may have heard someone get beat down by somebody, and then they can't remember it. A lot of times this is the same effect. As a matter of fact, this is where y'all gonna think I'm tripping. If you study The Incredible Hulk and really think of that from a psychoanalytic standpoint, and you tell me what you come out to. Because when I start thinking about Incredible Hulk and I'm looking at this video, I'm looking at some of my clients and things like that, it's like that dude was dissociating. Now it went to another level. It was like some demons or something. But he was dissociating because a lot of times he got angry. Well, most of the time he got angry about something, and it caused him. And from what I can remember from watching it as a child, because I'm that old, is that he couldn't really remember what happened before he dissociated. Okay? How real is that? This is so compelling. It made me start to study the background of this guy. And I said, yo, did that dude have some trauma? It's just a fictional character, Marvel or something. All right, but yeah, he did. They even smart enough. They were even smart enough that I think his dad was like an alcoholic, and his mom, something happened with her, and she was murdered by her dad, by the dad, or some junk like that. Anyway, I digress. All this stuff is relevant, but we're gonna look because when you see something with this client, it may remind you a little bit of that. And how many times are your clients experiencing this? Could sometimes dissociations be connected with anger emotions? What other emotions can it be connected with? So we're going to see background on this client. This client did experience um, sexual abuse at some point in her life, and she is being processed by a therapist. Now, this is a really old video from 92. She's being processed by her therapist, 30, 35, 45, 50. We got to hurry up. And yeah, and he's bringing some stuff out of her. She's switching. But in this scenario, he's getting her to review what has happened when she started to have the reaction. But right here, she's watching a video of herself receiving treatment when she switched out. And you all won't get to see it, but it's this one personality that's called Enigma. And I'll leave the clip in here where y'all can review, take a look at this video. But that one was trying to kill her. And that one cuts and does all these different things that tries to take her out. It's too much to get into, but that's where we are. Let's check this out and see if we can relate with this situation in any way with our psychotherapy experiences. All right, let's get it started.
Gretchen was unaware of the memories that had been revealed in therapy. The next step was for her to learn about the abuse.
Credit to Heiko Manser, multiple personality disorder documentary.
I understand that it was small. Do you understand that? Still thinking it was. As we walk through this, pay attention to this, but also be aware of what's going on inside you, okay?
Oh man, I don't ask too much. Kevin.
One of the others that also hurt. One that Gretchen doesn't understand is why the body wasn't able to fight more back then.
In the bathroom.
So I'm gonna back it up. He was asking her to kind of get ready to listen and watch the video, and she was saying, don't ask me for too much or something of that nature. All right, here we go.
Do you understand that? Still thinking maybe. As we walk through this, pay attention to this, but also be aware of what's going on inside you, okay?
Oh man, I don't ask too much. Kevin.
One of the others that also hurt. One that Gretchen doesn't understand is why the body wasn't able to fight more back then.
In the bathroom. Over to us.
Kevin asked Gretchen to watch videotape of the therapy so she would know what her other personalities had remembered.
Okay, already we should be checking something out. Like, I want you to just look at her expression starting out. Look at that. That looks like two different people. Okay? What's her expression starting out? And what's this change that you start to see coming over her? What's going on here? And notice that what she's watching is video of her getting close to being able to identify that she was sexually abused. And she gets really graphic. I cut all that stuff out for this one because I try not to do that too much. But so now she's watching herself talking about this experience. Oh man, it's too much.
Oh man, I don't ask too much. Kevin.
One of the others that also hurt. One that Gretchen doesn't understand is why the body wasn't able to fight more back then.
In the bathroom. Over to us.
Kevin asked Gretchen to watch videotape of the therapy so she would know what her other personalities had remembered. But when Gretchen began to hear details of her abuse, her mind began to block the experience. This is how Gretchen protected herself when she was a child.
Then there was a piece in her mouth. Oh.
Okay, stay connected here. What are you feeling right now?
You're burning me!
Minutes later, confronted with the abuse, the violent personality of Enigma emerged in a rage.
Do not touch his face! Do not touch his face!
Is that what happened during the abuse? It is, isn't it?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Kill this body. Kill this body. Go ahead. Kill this body. We shall always remain! We shall always remain! Enigma! We shall always be Enigma! We shall always be! We shall always be!
You're not evil. And you're not a demon. You're not a demon. I don't know what you were taught, but it's not true.
Okay. Of course, we don't have the time to go deep into this, but this is a really interesting display and example of what happens when someone dissociates. Okay. If you notice in watching her, and I've got to stop. If you notice in watching her, I could see it coming. Okay. Just studying micro expressions, I was like, she's about to switch. And maybe you could too. Right. And it seemed to me that the expression that I saw on her face was that she was becoming angry. Okay. I don't know if that's what it was. But Enigma seems pretty like a pretty angry character for whatever reason. He always wants to do something to take her out. That's one of the alters, right? And so this is the thing is that like I said, got me watching Incredible Hulk, stuff like that. It doesn't have to be the emotion of anger, but many times it is. That when someone experiences what we are referencing as an environment that is overstimulating the senses, many times we start seeing disruptive behaviors. It doesn't matter if you're talking about someone with dissociative identity disorder. It doesn't matter, and they're splitting off. Someone who has a an episode like we talked about last week to where they're being overstimulated. It doesn't have to be anger, like the kid throwing over the TVs, the televisions, and things like that. You know, that can bring out, behaviors that are that I'm trying to look for the word for, but behaviors that we don't see as being the best. Okay, is a term. Okay, anytime when we are not grounded well, or your client is not grounded well with understanding how to experience adverse situations that may harm them, that may be overwhelming, that may cause anxiety and things like that, something has to happen. Okay? With Freud, he called them defenses. So you might start to sublimate because you can't handle these overwhelm. It's over, and so we may sublimate. You might you might have counter. Well, not I want to use counter transference, but you might have interjection. You might have projection, things of that nature. You name it, the defense mechanisms. We use these to settle ourselves. What was interesting, if you check out this video too, is that typically what I have seen with individuals who cut, and we talked about this in our sessions, is that usually it's something to relieve them in a sense. It's a bad grounding intervention to it's not, it could be considered a parasuicidal, but it's not something like if you see in this character, this lady did it too. She started banging her head up against the wall. That's a parasuicidal type of behavior, could be identified that way if I'm not mistaken. And you wouldn't say that she's trying to commit suicide. Same way with the cutting for some people, and maybe even for her perhaps. But when you watch the video, it seems as though, and like they said, it's different with her. Her situation is more severe. The cutting was not something that was not necessarily life threatening. Many times someone who cuts, it's not necessarily a life-threatening situation. It is life-threatening because it's dangerous and you can cut a vein and things like that. But I'm saying from the standpoint of you being suicidal. Okay, with her, because of one of the altars or something that's going on, you can hear her speaking about how it says that it wants to take her out, and that's associated with the cutting. So much, you all, to learn with this journey of psychotherapy, and it's amazing how we pull up the pieces. But I like to use the extreme situations to support the less extreme situations. Not everybody is going to dissociate to the point of changing their identity or them becoming something else due to certain traumas. But some people dissociate right in your face and we don't even know it. Okay? Some people will pass out from dissociate. Some people just do it in their mind and you don't even know that it's necessarily happening. Okay? And so there are interventions that we go over in our sessions and things to support clients, support the therapist with understanding how to treat clients who you notably see about to dissociate. And I've experienced that several times. Okay. And so in understanding how to do that. But I'm just gonna leave it off of here. I'm way over, but I'll try to leave the clip for this because it's really a study here for you to look at if you want to share that with your supervisees. And we will pick up on next week. I hope this has been helpful. Y'all take care and have a blessed rest of the week. All right, bye bye.